Hi, my name is Nick Felder, and I'm a current MBA student at Eastern New Mexico University going through Business 501. And today I would like to talk to you about stress in the workplace and the ethical implications that go along with that. So quickly, I'll cover my agenda, discuss what we'll be talking about today. First, I'll go over the effects of stress on the employee and how those stresses can compromise an employee's health and the ethical implications along with that. Then I'll briefly touch on the history of work, where we've come from, where we've been, how we've gotten to where we are today, and how that affects daily stress levels. Then I'll cover appropriate work-life balance and why that's important to combating stress, and how it can also have a great impact on ethical implications when it comes to the work employee. Then I'll cover vacation time and how that can be, there's some ethical gray areas when it comes to vacation time as well. Finally, I'll go over some potential solutions to try to avoid some of those ethical pitfalls that some companies might fall into. And I will conclude. So first of all, the effects of stress. Stress can be caused by a lot of different things in the workplace. Generally, when you think of stress and work, you think of somebody being overworked. You think of working 12-hour shifts and not having time to recuperate and basically just going home, going to bed, coming back to work the next day. This is where ergonomics can start to slip. Employees can start to hunch over in their chairs, lift too much if they're in a production environment, type too long in the office, and overworking employees for too long can affect their well-being, which is a bit of an ethical dilemma. If you're overworking your employees and you're affecting their well-being, that's kind of a gray area. Additionally, this can directly affect the company and the company's expenses. The company will have to pay for employees when they're sick. You have a allotted amount of sick days. Stress-related sickness is a real thing. Employees can be pushed to the limit too far. And to give you an example, I work for a health insurance provider, and our employees, not only are we going to pay them for sick leave, but then we're going to pay a claim for them to go see their doctor. So it's a double whammy for us. So managing that stress appropriately and not overworking employees and not falling into those ethical implications that can arise is beneficial. Also, you're going to see a productivity decline if employees are overstressed, and the turnover might be higher. Our the employer that I work for has actually a very good turnover rate. The average tenure of our staff is about 17 years, and there's about 1,600 employees. So it's pretty impressive. It's because we don't overstress our employees and because we don't ever have to deal with those ethical dilemmas. Move on here. Dismal morale is an easy one that's a gimme. That doesn't need much explaining. So next I'd like to talk about the history of work and how that plays into the amount of stress that people are now feeling in the workplace. So going way back to tribal days, back to when Native Americans owned the land, owned America, you were kind of delegated your position based on your attributes. So you might be told to be a hunter or a gatherer, or you might be, if you're a woman, you're going to bear the children and raise them and school them. Then we kind of migrated into the specialties, so trades, craftsmen, blacksmiths, that kind of thing, and that was learned through apprenticeships. Next came the Industrial Revolution, which kind of started to form the way that we view work today. It brought about the manufacturing shops, assembly lines, mass production, Henry Ford's Model T. You can have any car, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. It brought about the idea of creating steps in a work process and having multiple people in that process complete those steps. Next is that I'm going to touch on is scientific management, and I think that kind of goes along with the Industrial Revolution, because once we define those steps in the assembly line and the steps to a manufacturing process, Frederick Taylor came along and said, well, let's look at the work, let's start working smarter and not harder, and let's define better ways to do things. Let's improve those processes, which speaks pretty true to me because I am an industrial engineer by training, so that's right up my alley. And then finally we get into the electrical and technological age where things start to get automated. And that moves us into where we are currently with work, with the internet, and with all our different softwares and technological gadgets that we have at our fingertips. Work is expected to be done now, and that's what I kind of wanted to allude to, is how much we've progressed over the years and how things have sped up to such a rate that jobs are so demanding. Things are expected, results are expected now, not yesterday. You don't get a week. You need to produce, and you need to produce now. And that's where companies can fall into an ethical dilemma of overworking their employees and not treating them fairly and causing them more stress. So now that we've kind of worked up to where we are currently with the history of work, I want to talk about work-life balance. And this can be heavily influenced by your supervisor, which can be heavily influenced by their supervisor, and so on. It also is very influenced by the culture of the company that you work for, but your supervisor can kind of make or break your work-life balance. And the ethical dilemma here is that people don't get to spend enough time with their families. They are married to their job, and they have to miss family functions, they have to miss funerals, they miss weddings to make sure that they get their job done. And the threat of losing that job is substantial. So it's not necessarily a spoken threat, but it's always in the back of an employee's mind, like, I have to perform or I could lose my job. And this could be the company culture, this could be a supervisor pushing this on the employee. But without that work-life balance, without being able to make those family events, people are going to be more stressed, have more stress-related health issues. It also, not having appropriate work-life balance is going to affect productivity greatly. If an employee is not happy, not able to make it to a baseball game for their son, they're not going to be as productive at work. They might be productive in the fact that they're working 16-hour shifts and they're getting quite a bit of work done, but they're not going to be efficient. They're not going to do as much in the amount of time as they could if they had that appropriate work-life balance. I've already kind of touched on family time and happiness and how those can be affected, and the ethical implications of kind of taking those away, holding those hostage from employees. And hobbies, yeah, you're not gonna get to go golfing with your buddies often if you don't have appropriate work-life balance. And your health and fitness. This goes back to employee well-being. If you don't have time to go for walks, work out on your lunch break, prepare a healthy meal at night because you don't get home until 9 or 10 o'clock, and then you don't get up early enough the next morning because you're wiped out and you don't pack a lunch, you don't pack a healthy meal. These are all implications of not maintaining an appropriate work-life balance. I thought an appropriate transition from work-life balance would be vacation time. And I thought this was important to talk about because it varies from company to company, and the way that they treat vacation time can cause ethical issues. First of all, the time allotted. Some companies give a lot more vacation time than other companies. I know one of the benefits of working, say, at Netflix, for example, is that you can take a year off after you have a child, for both men and women. And that's not necessarily vacation time, but it's just an example of how employees can be treated versus maybe a company only gives somebody 5 days total plus their holidays to take off. And I know at my company, I don't get paternity leave. I don't get to take off when I have a child. So the time allotted can vary. Time taken, that's another big issue. Companies might expect when you take your vacation time to be attached to your phone, be answering emails, hop on the computer for a couple hours work here, a couple hours work there. You're still off, you're not at work, you get your vacation time. But to me, that's unethical. You can't, when employees are on vacation, I believe that they should be allowed to be on vacation. No emails should be expected. They shouldn't be reprimanded or deterred from taking that vacation time. And when they get back, they shouldn't have to deal with any backlash. That's where companies can fall into ethical, moral dilemmas. And the different benefit variances, I know that some people can take what they call flex time, and that's where they can be able to leave for an hour to go to an appointment. Other people, they have to take PTO. So making sure that that's clearly defined and the same for all employees. Not allowing employees enough recovery time due to not giving them the vacation time that they need when they need it can cause ethical issues. And then this all goes back to the culture. What kind of a company do you work for? How does your boss treat your employees and your colleagues? And I already talked about the working vacation, how that is unethical in my opinion. You shouldn't be expected to show up for your job at home when you're supposed to be spending time with your family. So here's some solutions that I've identified that companies can practice to try to stay out of those ethical gray areas, try and kind of stay away from sticky situations. And one thing that a company could practice is mandatory vacations. And by mandatory, I mean no checking your email, not getting on your computer, and making people take a specific number of days per year in the hopes that that would return to them in productivity and efficiency with a refreshed, revitalized employee. An appropriate reward system, making sure that when an employee does spend 6 weeks, 12 hours a day getting a giant project done, that they are rewarded appropriately for that and that people see that reward. Considering 4-day work weeks. This could really make a difference for an employee if their job isn't tied to customer service or something that's essential to the business that has to happen on a Friday. Why not let them work 4 10-hour days? Remote work days. My wife and I get to work from home on Fridays, and we love it. Nothing better than rolling out of bed and putting on your sweatpants and going to work. So that's another potential. A lot of companies are moving to that model and having people actually work from home full time. More recognized holidays. We don't get Columbus Day where I work, but that sure would be nice. Including different family benefits to reduce stress, like having a daycare on site. That would definitely reduce stress for us. And having recognition days for your family. We have a special day where we all meet in the park and have a big festivity, and it's for all employees and all their family. And it's really nice to be rewarded and recognized, that the families get recognized for all that they do to support the people that work for the organization. And then some things that employees can try and do on their own to eliminate stress. Initiating positive relationships, leaving work at work, and having a conversation with their supervisor that should be okay. And if it's not, reporting it or finding a way to change jobs. Get more sleep, take care of yourself, eat well, be more active, and find a way to get organized. Nothing's more stressful than a busy desk with a lot of papers on it and not knowing what your priorities are and when it comes to work. So to conclude, I talked about some of the benefits of reducing stress. um, already with the vacation time and things of that nature, but I also wanted to talk about how this can create more buy-in from your workforce, how it can increase morale. It keeps you out of the ethical dilemmas for sure. When you find ways to reduce that stress, find ways to make sure that employees have appropriate work-life balance and don't expect them to work on their vacations. It also leads to longer tenure. Like I mentioned before, our company has a very long tenure, and that's because we treat them with respect and don't overwork them. The only time we've been overworked has been I work for a health insurance provider, and we've gone through the Affordable Care Act hoops and hurdles, and people worked long hours, but we were rewarded and recognized for that, and weren't expected. If we were on vacation, we weren't expected to work those hours. Um, and then finally, just maintaining a happy and healthy workforce and making sure that people get what they need. Um, that in turn creates a strong culture, and the strong culture then gets talked about out in the community, which creates a reputation. And as your reputation grows, you are able to capture more talent, better talent, and make your workforce better. So I hope that I've covered some of the different issues related to stress, how it's kind of evolved over the years, how our work has evolved, and maybe how to avoid getting into those sticky ethical situations that can arise when it comes to stress in the workplace. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. And finally, I'll just show you some of the references that I use for my talk today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a great day.